Welcome to Accomplished Minds, a community of inspired, passionate people from around the world building a new emerging economy. Today I'm chatting with Mr. Garfield King, an independent radio producer, presenter, and a voice coach with over 30 years of broadcast experience. He writes, produces, and presents daily radio segments in Trinidad and Tobago, such as Motivation Minute on Music Radio 97, A Dose of Health on 100.5 FM, as well as Tips for Better Living aired weekdays on Radio St. Lucia. He studied sound recording and engineering in London and trained in radio and television announcing at the National Institute of Broadcasting in Toronto, Canada. Garfield shares a deep passion in the healing and therapeutic qualities of music, sound, and vibration. Today we'll be chatting about the importance of finding your voice in a big noisy world. Garfield, welcome to Accomplished Minds.
Thank you very much, Lorena. Pleasure being here this morning.
Thank you. How do you define voice?
How do I define voice?
Yes.
Voice, I think of in terms much more than what comes out of your mouth, but more about your essence, what you want to communicate, and the medium that you use for that communication. So it's not just this, but it's what is behind that, what encompasses that, or what informs what we actually hear. What many people term voice is the end result of many things that are going on within our mind, or some people say consciousness, some people say soul, whatever language you wish to use. But our essence, really.
Our essence. You're talking about voice as capital V as compared to the bigger self.
Yes, voice with a capital V. That's a good way of putting it.
Okay. So you studied sound engineering and radio and television announcing in London and Toronto. How did you come to realize that voice played such an important part?
Well, it was really a personal thing because my grandfather on my mother's side, also I'm told, he passed away long before I was born, that he was a musician, and I later understood that there were other members of my family going back who were musically inclined. And I got involved in music in a very intense way. Must have been 7, 8 years old, and used to be playing in school orchestras and things like that, and I got involved in rock music in a band and things like that as a teenager, like a lot of teenagers do, you play guitar and different instruments. And so I thought, well, let me find out a bit more about how music is produced. And because of that, I studied sound engineering and later the technology of sound, especially when synthesizers came in and things like that, to try and find out, well, what is sound doing? Because we're met with sound all the time. Sound is happening all around us. In fact, even in the womb, of course, we're hearing the music of our mother's heartbeat. We're hearing the water that's floating around in the room. And these sounds are a kind of music. It's a rhythm. And so I was fascinated with that. And I think as early as probably around 10, 11 years old, I had the feeling that I wanted to be involved in radio and media that uses sound as a means of communication. So it goes back a fair bit here. And I can still remember that. You see.
Wow. You are clearly deeply passionate about sound and how you come across to the world, basically.
Well, yeah, because there's what some people in spiritual realm call going beyond sound. There is something that exists that affects us in a very, very deep way. It touches us in a very, very deep place. If we allow ourselves to experience it. And of course, most of us don't. We run away from anything that suggests stillness. We seem to be addicted to sound. Many people are very uncomfortable with silence. Ever tried driving with somebody and not saying anything, not being angry or anything, but just being quiet?
It makes them very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And of course, we don't want people to be uncomfortable, so we start talking. And then we find ourselves talking about what? Nothing much at all.
Yeah.
And so the journey goes by with talk, but no communication. And you know, when you're with somebody who you really have a good connection with, you can be sitting with them on a journey for hours and not say a word. But at the end of the journey, it's like you've connected.
Yeah.
So clearly, there's stuff that goes on that has nothing to do with what we physically hear. And those are the things that have always intrigued me. But at the same time, friends that I grew up with have also said, but you're weird. But that's all right. That's okay.
They meant it with love.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did.
So, with saying that, are some people more naturally inclined to be heard more than others? Or do we all have the ability to command attention through our voices?
I think we all have abilities that I'm not aware of. I think each human being, there are 7 billion plus of us on this little piece of rock at the moment, floating around in space. Well, not so much floating, it actually has a path, doesn't it? But I think that everybody has a hidden potential. Everybody is potentially, and this is going to sound really cheesy, but it's something I believe in. Everybody has a tremendous potential, every one of us. And sometimes, we are afraid of dealing with it because deep inside we know that if I recognize my potential, it also means I have to do something. And people are afraid of failure, that I might not live up to what I think my potential is. So we hide it. But as far as voice is concerned, as you said, quite rightly, voice with a capital V, I think everybody has the potential to get in touch with that voice, because after all, and when we're talking about voice, even if you don't have, you were born without the ability to speak. As you know, somebody who is not able to speak, you can have a conversation with them even without sign language if you know that person well. It's like a person who's visually impaired. I do a lot of work with some people, a chap, a very talented music producer, and he will always say, well, oh, it's good to see you. He will use that language, although he cannot physically see, but he can sense, and he's very perceptive. He can, they say when one sense is removed, other senses are. And certainly, as long as we're living, there are vibrations that we can feel and experience. And I think that, we all have the capacity to do that, to feel that essence.
It's quite amazing that you're speaking about essence, because, we have a saying that, I could feel your aura. Does that have any connection with, capital V? I could feel, you haven't even spoken a word, but I just feel that energy or vibration coming off the other person.
Yeah, well, in the time when I grew up, we used to be vibes in, man. So, you can feel somebody's vibes. You can walk into a room and people don't say anything, but you can feel. The atmosphere was so thick I could cut it with a knife. Yes. We use expressions like that. And my spirit just didn't take him or her. And I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't require anything external. Without a word being said, we can often feel the presence. And certainly, we could use the word vibrations, because essentially that's what it is. Frequencies. And people vibrating with similar frequencies come together. There's this thing of resonance. You have an instrument in the room. You must have heard this example many times, especially acoustic instruments, and you pluck a note on a string, and another instrument in the room will will resonate because of the frequency that's passing through the air. There are frequencies that exist. I mean, radio frequencies. People talk about magic. I don't know, but the reality is there are frequencies going on all around us. That's how we pick up. I mean, and these days with Wi-Fi, wherever you go, so in the air around us, there are frequencies that exist that have been created by technology. But even before all of this technology, there were the vibrations that exist by just being alive. And as you know, these things, when they put these little electrodes and all these things on your head and stuff, can measure your brain waves. And what are brain waves? Are they not frequencies? Are they not, for want of a better word, if we use the word vibrations? So when you look at a sound file on a computer, and you see how an audio file is measured, and you see the modulation waves, you start to measure, well, everything is vibrating. And if we can get in, these things where, yeah, man, let me go backwards a bit. Yeah, man, I'm in tune with that person. Mm-hmm. We used to use, well, you're probably too young to remember that. But we used to say things like that, and we still do, but we just use different language. But essentially, you can feel people, and they don't have to say anything. They don't have to say anything. I feel you. I see you.
So join me for part 2 on Finding Your Voice.